I was a boiler technician in one fire room, and when I first reported on board that ship, the ship was in a shipyard up in Bremerton, Washington. It was going through an overhaul, its cycle overhaul, and as well as the Jouett, the CG-29. Now, she had asbestos. For the first year I was on board the Jouett, she had asbestos, and we went into the shipyards when we got back to the States. This was back in 1979. And before they towed the ship up to Long Beach from San Diego, they secured the fire room and cut all the asbestos out. But we were still exposed to it. On several occasions, to get to a valve, we had to take the actual cut the lagging off as well as the insulation to the piping to get to the valve, the steam piping down in the fire room. And that was done on several occasions without any kind of face mask or anything. And that was a normal practice. And then sometimes we'd have to relag and redo the valve or the installation, or leave it like that, and then we got pulled back into port, and somebody would come in and do it again. When I first reported on board the Strauss, there was no installation on the piping whatsoever, and they put the installation on the piping while, before, as we were putting the plant back together. So it's just things like that, and we were constantly, like I said, anytime we had to remove a pump or something like that, then we'd have to take insulation away from pipings that were adjacent to the pump, whether it was a cooling line or actual steam line. It was a common practice, I don't know, multiple times throughout 4 years I was on the Strauss, and then I was on the Jouett for 4 years. I did 2 enlistments. For 4 years I was on the Strauss, and then for the first year I was on the Jouett, I was definitely exposed extensively to asbestos. And of course the Jouett the whole ship was full of asbestos in the berthing compartments, etc. So, and of course, I don't know how many times I handled and was dealing with gaskets for flanges, etc., on pumps and valves. And there were times that stuff it's so fine. It just, when you're cutting with the saw to remove the lagging and the insulation from the steam piping or whatever the piping was down there, whether it was a cooling water line, I mean, that stuff was just everywhere. Of course, anything pertaining to the asbestos situation, definitely don't go anywhere around or anywhere near it unless you have some kind of breathing apparatus or something that's going to protect your mouth and your nose from any kind of, and most of these places now, well, they've kind of been on top of it, but there are still buildings. As a matter of fact, the house I lived in Minnesota had asbestos in the tile and on the kitchen floor. Right now, I have like a congestion in my chest. I also have, and they can't figure this out, I have black spots across my chest, in my chest cavity. I've had several x-rays done. I first discovered this way back in 1993, I think it was. So it's something that wasn't really looked at or taken seriously at the time it was discovered. I just recently had, well, it was last year or the year before last, I had some x-rays done, and they've seen these spots, and they've been kind of monitoring it to see if it's been expanding. Now, at first they thought it might have been TB, and I was tested for that. I did a sputum, and they didn't see nothing with that. But I do have a congestion. I'm like short of breath when I do anything more than, let's say if I walk up 5 or 6 steps, yeah. But the big thing to me was these black spots.